So here we go. Welcome to another edition of the League One Lowdown. Today I'm joined by Toby Lock, the man who covers all things MK Dons for the MK Citizen, the sports editor. Toby, thanks for joining me first of all. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, Ross. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. And we were talking off there. The countdown to the kickoff is very much here. And it's going to be an exciting League One season. It's going to be very hard to call. Let's recap MK Dons season end from last year. Liam Manning coming in halfway through, or pretty much the start of the season, of course. Russell Martin had pre-season, had the first few games, and then Liam Manning came in. How do you recap last season? Playoff semi-final defeat. Overall, what do you think?
To be honest, I think if you'd have offered any MK Dons fan third place after the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years that they've had going up and down the divisions, I think everybody was absolutely delighted with certainly the way that the regular season finished. The playoffs have not been happy hunting ground for Dons in their history, having never made a playoff final, suffered several playoff semi-final defeats. So I think being offered third place was absolutely brilliant. There was some amazing football played. It was a continuation of what Russell Martin started. And as you say, Liam Manning came in pretty much after the opening game of the season and took the lead from there. And they just went from strength to strength to strength. You know, they lost a few players in January, but then kicked on even further with some clever loan signings and some more players coming out of their shell around January sort of time, made some good money as well. And it just felt like last season was their best season for many, many seasons. And, you know, we're hoping that it continues into next season. They've obviously had some ups and downs over the transfer window, but, you know, we're at this point now where we're a few days away from the season starting, and we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Indeed. And let's talk about the current mood, and we'll talk about transfers because that is the big talk of news in MK Dons world. But what's the current mood, you know, with supporters going into this campaign? You know, after a season losing in the playoffs, but as you said, fans probably took your arm off at the start of last season. But what is the current mood at the moment?
I think there's a little bit of optimism, actually. You know, a lot of times you go into a new season and, you know, like last season, for example, finishing 13th, everyone's thinking, oh, yeah, we'll push for the playoffs. And you're thinking, calm yourselves a little bit. You know, there's a reason that Dons finished 13th and not third. But then they recruited wisely. They brought in some good players last summer. And, you know, now, having had the transfer window that they've had this summer, got rid of a lot of I don't like to say deadwood, but players who were on the fringes. You know, a lot of squad players lost a lot. Obviously, the loan players went back, and you know, there's been another massive transition. But the players who have bought in, they look really, really exciting, and I think there's a reason to be a little bit optimistic. Some of those players are a little bit under the radar, potentially unknown, potentially unheard of by an awful lot of fan bases up and down the country. So I think there's a little bit of optimism there that MK Dons could be there or thereabouts in the mix again.
Indeed. And well, let's talk about the elephant in the room then, with two big players leaving. But we'll see. We'll talk about the people who are replacing them. Scott Twine, of course, has gone to Burnley, and Harry Darling's gone to Swansea, reuniting with Russell Martin. Of course, they're always going to be the big talking points. Two really key players last year. Scott Twine should not be playing League One football, so I think I was always expecting him to go to the Championship. What has been the reaction with that? I think with MK Don fans, they knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, I think so. Similarly with Harry, really. I think had Dons not gone up, those two were always going to be the ones who were top of an awful lot of shopping lists at Championship clubs. And we knew that Russell Martin was interested in Harry Darling in January. He brought him in January 2021 for a pittance, basically, and also wanted him in January 2022. Couldn't get him. Dons did really well to hang on to him. I think they did really well to hold on to Scott Twine as well. I know there was interest there, nothing concrete, but you know, there was interest. And I think had Dons gone up, they'd have been still MK Dons players now. And I think is the only reason that they're not is because of that failed playoff campaign. But saying that, you know, I think most of the fans were resigned to it. They knew what was going to happen, but they're coming to terms with the way MK Dons have been operating over the last 2 or 3 years now of getting players in, making best use of them, and then selling them on for more money than they got them in for. And that's clearly a way that an awful lot of clubs at this level have to operate. And it's the way that MK Dons are doing quite well, because, you know, the money that they got in for both Twiney and Harry Darling was far beyond what they paid for them. So if that money can be reinvested well, you know, I think this is one of the first summers that they've put out the classic undisclosed fee on bringing players in that they don't normally do. They normally don't spend an awful lot of money. They're not in a position to be able to do that. But finally, with some of the transfers that they've done over the last 12 months, they're able to do that, and they've recruited wisely. And yes, it's a shame to lose those two players because they were the backbone of the team. But saying that, if you can bring in 3, 4, 5, 6 players who are able to make that up and then improve on each area, then that's the logical way to do it and go about it. And so I think most people were pretty resigned to it, but pretty happy with the business that they've done as a result.
Yeah, let's talk about the players they've brought in then. They've dipped into the island market. A few clubs have done that this season, especially. I know last year Oxford sort of signed Luke McCanley, who's gone to Burnley. But what are the standout signings so far? Will Grigg is a specialist. Bradley Johnson, of course, a former Norwich player, so he'll be a big talking point when we play each other. Of course, Jamie Cummings come back on loan from Chelsea. He was there last season. Louis Barry, who had a spell with us last season. Didn't do so great, but then went to Swindon, did really well for them, helping them get into the playoffs. As a whole, what do you think of the transfer window so far?
I think it's been a pretty productive one. It's hard to keep on top of pretty much everybody because I think there's been 12 signings that they brought in this summer already. One of them was while I was in the car driving to Brighton, so I had to end up parking up and writing it up from a car park in Hemel Hempstead somewhere. So apologies for any typos in that one, but. It's been an entertaining window, and I think it's been a very productive one. I think they've strengthened in pretty much the right areas and the areas that they've needed to. The Jamie Cummings signing, which you said there, is a massive one because he played a key part in the way Dons transitioned from January onwards and really made that push in the second half of the season. And yes, he's a goalkeeper, but he's a very clever goalkeeper. He's very good at what he does. Griggy's one that pulls on a lot of heartstrings at MK Dons. He had a loan spell that helped Dons to promotion in 2015. So he was a massive part and somebody that Dons have chased for a while and Dons fans have longed after for 8 years. So that one was a very emotion-led transfer, I think, but also one that I think has a bit of steam to it. The one I'm looking forward to most, as you mentioned, the Irish boys. There's Dara Burns, who looks a real lively winger. He's a bit of an unknown quantity and comes really highly rated out of the under-21s system over in Ireland. But similarly, Dawson Devoy is another guy who an awful lot of clubs were after. A bit of an unknown quantity over on these shores, of course. But Dons have got to rely on that. They've got to count on those sorts of things to have a little bit of a surprise element. And from what I've heard, Dawson Devoy is the guy that everybody needs to look out for, because if he can put up half the numbers that Scott Twine does, then Dons have got a serious player on their hands.
Indeed, look forward to that. It's always good about these unknown players. You never know out of nowhere they can come in. I want to quickly just chat about Jack Tucker quickly as well. Of course, you'll say he came in to replace Harry Darling in the centre back role. I know he just got relegated with Gillingham, but sometimes you've got to ignore that. And he's a decent player. I was impressed with him when I saw him play.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a wise head on young shoulders. I think he's only 21 and. He's a great interview, which obviously works for journalists. But he's a clever footballer. He does look like he's cut from the Harry Darling mould in that he's a leading centre back more so than a number 2 supporting centre back, and doesn't mind putting his head where it hurts. And yeah, I mean, like you, I was very impressed with the games that I saw him in last season, albeit for a Gillingham side that plays quite agricultural football. But saying that, I've just praised Jamie Cumming, and he was playing similar football for Gillingham in the first half of the season before he swapped Gillingham for Dons on loan. So I think he's one of those players who could be the diamond in the rough, and that's the sort of players that Dons have got to go after. Picking the bones of some of these teams that have gone down, and bringing them up to potentially where they should be playing. And if Jack Tucker can be a similar sort of defender to Harry Darling, then it might be a fairly seamless transition into the new season.
Indeed, it's always one of those. Well, let's talk about this season ahead then. Your thoughts, Toby, overall. As we said, it's hard to call. There's a lot of big teams in this division. You can see now everyone online doing the 1 to 24, predicting the league table. I won't get you to do that with MK Dons, but what's your thoughts going into this season as a whole?
I completely agree with you. It's going to be such a tough season. I thought last season was one of the toughest that we've seen in League One for many years, and I think this one could be just as tough because we'll have huge teams coming down, the likes of Derby County. I mean, they're not going to want to stick around in League One forever. But we've seen, unfortunately, Ipswich, they've come down, expected to bounce straight back up, and they haven't. And it's far more difficult to get out of League One than I think a lot of people will give it credit for. Even like Sheffield Wednesday, Sunderland, these are clubs that don't want to be in League One, and yet this is where they find themselves. And I think an awful lot of clubs will be trying to chuck money at the problem now and trying to get out as quick as possible. But it's just not going to be that simple, because there are so many different ways of being able to get out of League One that there is no right or wrong way. It's just who does it most effectively. And, I think if Dons can be in and around the playoff mix again, I think it will be a brilliant success, because they haven't, while they have had more money than they've had in previous years, it's certainly by no stretch a massive amount of money compared to some of those around them spending. So I think it will be an enthralling season. I think it'll be entertaining again. I think the clubs that will be there or thereabouts like to play a decent style of football now, which makes League One a lot more attractive to watch for a neutral, and for the TV cameras if they want to come down on an international weekend and ruin all of our schedules. But it's one of those now where I think there could be any one of 12 teams that could be in the running, and come September, October time, we'll still have no idea. It will be April, May sort of time that we may end up knowing how those movers and shakers end up panning out.
Indeed, yeah. Because last year, if you think about it, Wickham finished 6th with 83 points, which is just bonkers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that Dons were in it until in the automatic hunt until the final day, when everybody thought that Rotherham were done. Everyone thought that they'd gone and they'd done it, and they were supposed to wrap it up 3-4 weeks before. That final playoff spot was decided when Dons went and thumped Plymouth, and Wickham snuck in, and that we probably should have rolled over and died that day instead. It obviously didn't work out well for Dons letting Wickham into that one. But yeah, it's one of those. I think you could roll a dice and not be surprised by the outcome, because I think any one of, like I say, 12 teams could be there or thereabouts this season.
Indeed. Well, let's talk about the head-to-heads between Town and MK. First of all, it's an early doors, actually. We play MK Dons again, early doors in April. August, another A month. August 13th at Portland Road. And then, of course, the return fixture at Stadium MK. I'm sure, I don't know if MK will let us have that big allocation once again, of course, on the 25th of Feb at Stadium MK. What's your thoughts overall on the two fixtures? They're going to be, big talking points. Liam Manning versus Kieran McKenna, two young coaches going head to head. And of course, I'm sure both fans will bring decent amount for the away ends because it's nearby-ish.
Yeah, it's certainly not as bad a journey as many that we have to make, and it's often one that I get caught out by, because I think, I'll make sure I leave 2.5 hours early, and then I'm there in an hour and a half, and I'm sort of pottering around outside. Yeah. But yeah, they're intriguing fixtures, aren't they? Between Dons and Ipswich, they always bring up something. They're not rubbish games, let's put it like that. They tend to be fairly interesting, even though they do tend to end up in draws. I think last season's game at Portman Road was one that made us really sit up. It was, I think, the first one that Liam Manning really had the opportunity to put out a side that he'd picked more so than his first game. He basically showed up on the Friday and then was just charged with taking charge of the game the following day against Sunderland. So we couldn't really read an awful lot into it. But it was one of the very early games, and I think that's when we started to see what the Liam Manning plan was going to be about. And the game back at Stadium MK was a chess match, wasn't it? It was very much two sides butting heads. You could see that they were both very evenly matched, and Ipswich are a huge club for this level. Let's not beat around the bush. They probably shouldn't be in League One, but as we mentioned, there are so many big clubs in League One now. It's sort of a big division in itself. So I think the 7,000 allocation was a bit of an eye opener from our point of view, because for the best will in the world, MK Dons fans could have been outnumbered in their own ground. And there may have been a little bit of number pushing here, there, and everywhere to try and make sure that wasn't the case. But it made for a great atmosphere, made for a great day. And, for all that the result was pretty much dead level. It was one of those afternoons that I think everybody looks forward to. And, the big games are always the ones that you want to get excited for and you want to go to. You're not always excited to be playing the team that's down at the bottom. It's the teams that you're going to be contending with that you get excited for. And I think Dons and Ipswich will be there or thereabouts, two sides that like to play similar styles of football. with, like you say, 2 young coaches who obviously have aspirations to be at a higher level.
They will be indeed. And well, Toby, it's been a pleasure. Really good chat. Any other business? Any other notes you want to add, my friend?
Well, I'm slightly intrigued from the MK Dons point of view of what on earth happened to Scott Fraser at Ipswich. We were all really, we love watching Scott Fraser, and there was a little bit of a clash between him and Russell Martin, but when he went, I think everybody was another one of those pieces of business that ended up with MK Dons thinking, okay, well, we've got a player on a free transfer, we've moved him on for a few quid. It just is what it is, but it just never seemed to get going for him there.
It's a what if moment because I was so excited because I knew, I liked him when he was at Burton, then when he was with you, and it just, I don't know, he just never kicked on. He missed a penalty against Burton when he, after a record of scoring all the time, and then we lost against that Burton game. He was playing out wide. He wasn't playing in his natural number 10 position, and I just don't think it worked out. I just don't think he settled well, and I think he maybe wanted to be the main man, and then we just moved him on. Basically, he went to Charlton. But then I don't think he's then became a main man there. I think he's had a few niggles, but he's still a great little player, isn't he?
Oh,
but
yeah,
it just didn't work out. I'm sure. I think he'll probably hopefully kick on at Charlton because he's still at a decent age. But it's just a what if, when we signed him, it's unbelievable. But the problem is we had so many number 10s as well, so it's like trying to fit everybody in the team, but you can't play 5 number 10s in a 11, can you?
No, that's it. And it's interesting you mentioned that he wanted to be the main man. We very much got that same feel at Stadium MK, and when they signed Matt O'Reilly in January 21, it sort of took a little bit of responsibility off Scott Fraser, and I don't think he liked that quite as much. And you could sort of see him go into his shell a little bit and almost not play within himself, but there was an element of he wasn't quite sure because he wanted to do everything. When you took one of those pieces away, he was sort of a little bit lost, and I think that really impacted him. So for you to say it as well, I think that just sort of confirms what we all thought. Is that he wants to be the main man at the club, and that's absolutely fine. But when you go to bigger clubs and they can't, the clubs don't rely on one man; they rely on 5 or 6 guys in the team. That's when he's going to start coming undone. And it'll be interesting to see what he does at Charlton now, because they've got a bit of an MK Dons old boys midfield there. I think there's 5 or 6 of them now that have come through our doors and then gone on to the Valley. And so it'll be interesting to see what he does there. And he's a good guy, Scott. We all love watching him play. And on his days, he's one of the best in the division. But unfortunately, those days seem to be few and far between. And we'll see what happens with him now, because he's got a few years left in his tank. But it is kind of make or break for him, because otherwise, clubs aren't going to take that gamble on him, because they'll know, it's not a player that you can constantly rely on.
Definitely, yeah. I said when in his exit interview, I said, I think this is going to bite us in the bum, this. But he hasn't yet kicked on at Charlton, but this will be a big season for him.
Yeah, absolutely it will. Absolutely it will. And, Dons are thankful that the money came in for him when it did, because otherwise that price may have plummeted over the first few months of last season. But yeah, good luck to him. And it's a shame it never worked out at Ipswich, because it looked like it was a good fit for him.
I think, I'm disappointed, but it is what it is. Players move on, don't they? And
we've brought in players come in with big hype and that just don't make the cut. And it's the nature of football. But it's a shame. And wish him all the best. But it's Charlton are another one, aren't they, who should be climbing the leagues all the time, but they just seem to find themselves in the League One mire all the time. So maybe League One isn't as bad as we make out. Maybe it's actually a brilliant division that we all should be really excited to be a part of.
Definitely. It's just some trips we're not looking forward to, but it is what it is. You have to go to them. You have to go to every team twice and all that jazz.
We've got Morecambe away on one Saturday, and we've got Exeter away the following Saturday. Ooh. So, the fixture calendar hasn't been particularly kind. Plymouth away on New Year's Day as well. So it might be a quiet away end that day at Home Park.
I think so too. Yeah, we shall see how we're doing. Well, Toby, thanks so much for joining me. Final words.
No, it's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing you down the road, and hopefully just behind Dons in the league table. That will suit us all absolutely fine.
Of course. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and stay tuned for more League One lowdowns. And the season is nearly here. Bring it on.